Hello, hello, and welcome. I thought I would share something as I am up at 3 a.m. and I'm not able to fall asleep for some reason. So I decided to sit with myself and hold some space for myself and allow myself to go through a process, whatever this process may be, because clearly there's a reason I am up and unable to sleep. But before I go into this space that I'll be holding for myself and sharing with you, I would like to share a little perspective just for some clarity, some understanding, because I know for a lot of people, this noise, this sound, this random mumble jumble nonsense that I say makes no sense, right? But here's a little bit of information. There's been studies done that has shown that this thing here, this sound, the words, the random mumbo jumbo that's being expressed, has got a scientific definition which is called glossolalia. This glossolalia is the only practice, could be wrong, but basically they done a test, and from praying, from speaking, your brain, the part that gets activated when you say words, doesn't get activated when you do this glossolalia. So people who do this, and this is in all different paths, right? This is in religion context. They call it praying in tongues. This is in spiritual concept. They call it light language. There's all different, perspectives to describe this experience and this articulation, this expression, right? For me personally, I call it an expression of the energy. So when you place your intention to allow yourself to express yourself vocally from your truth, from your heart, from your soul, you hold the space for yourself to step into that expression. So let me give an example. Like, let me tell you how it first happened for me, right? So I have never been a religious person. I never believed in God. I always had the perspective that it's more likely we was genetically modified by aliens than being created by a being that is everything and nothing all at the same time, that no one's ever met, that can't actually exist, because how could it exist if it's everything, right? So it either completely exists or doesn't exist. It can't exist outside of itself. So how could God, the creator, whatever you want to call it, well, actually, in fact, we're talking about God here, right? So how could God be inside of itself but still be the whole of itself at the same time, right? And from one perspective, it can be, of course, because, you know, if you look at it as the creator of the universe is the awareness of the universe, and the individual has its own awareness, then you can say God is the intelligence that created everything, and everything that has intelligence is an aspect of God. But without going through these perspectives, I've never really been religious. Even when I was like 18, I had this perspective on aliens, right? So I never had a strong belief in God, but I had always been invited by people to attend church. And eventually I decided to go and experience it. And when I went for the first time, I had gone to a friend of mine who we grew up in the same like the same street. It was more like a cove of houses. And where I grew up, there was a family of 4 children. And basically, one of them was inviting me to church over and over again. And I said, yes, I'll go. And eventually I finally went. And when I went, I saw them doing this weird thing with their mouth, this weird, strange noise. What are they doing? I was like, what's going on? Like, what is this? So I found the right time and I asked somebody, and I was told it's called praying in tongues. Right? And I was like, okay, and what exactly is that? And they're like, well, it's when the Holy Spirit kind of takes hold of you, if I remember correctly, was the way that they described it, right? I don't actually know the definitions because, as I said, I'm not a religious person. And for me on my journey, I've gone through it trying to take as little information as possible when I realized that the information that I was trying to get wasn't accessible outside of myself. And I realized that in the process of one of these journeys. Maybe I'll share that one day if anyone is interested. But basically, I asked about it, they told me, and I was like, okay. And in fact, actually, I'll share the whole story because it makes sense to share it. Because when I first went to the church, I saw them advertising a um, weekend prayer session, and me not being religious saw it and kind of went church out of an obligation because I said yes at first, didn't really feel like going. And then I got to a point where it was like, okay, let me go because I keep saying yes but not going. I felt bad, I felt guilty. There was an aspect of me that was also curious, right? But it became even more curious when I saw this church camp, and for some reason, I wanted to go. For a non religious person, wanting to go to a weekend that was a few hours' drive, that would be waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go and start praying from like 6 a.m. until I don't know what time. So, like hours and hours of prayer, right? With some preaching in between, with some, wisdom being shared in between. I wanted to go to it and I didn't know why, right? But I shared that and I was like, hey guys, like I want to come to this. How do I sign up? And I signed up straight away on the first day of going to church to this church camp. And at the end of that service that I was at, when I asked about the praying in tongues, they was like, okay, so would you like to try and do it? And I was like, well, in my head, I was like, well, I don't believe I'm going to do it because I know I'm not going to make these random noises consciously myself. But what's the worst that could happen? Let me be open to it and let me see, because they're all doing it, right? So it's either going to show me that they're all making these weird noises, or there's some possibility out here that I may not be able to comprehend. So I agreed to it with a completely open mind. So I want you to be really, really focused on the intention that I went into it with, because I believe this is what's the most important part of it, right? As equally as the intention of them offering. So the intention that I had going into it was disbelief, but complete openness. I knew that I wouldn't fake it, but I was still open to the possibility of it occurring in a way that I couldn't comprehend. I was there open and willing to experience whatever comes up. So I was told that I need to give my life to Christ, right? Which is a surrendering of self. So a openness, a letting go is how I understand this to be. A surrendering of self, a openness, a willingness to receive, right? To receive Christ into my life, but intentionally an openness to receive something. And we stood in a little circle and held hands, and some of them started praying in human understanding, like, Lord Jesus, help us or help our brother, connect with you. And I can't remember what they were saying, to be honest with you. And some of them was doing the glossolalia, the praying in tongues, right? And I was just like standing there not knowing what to say because I'm not religious, right? I don't know what's going on. I don't even know how to do a prayer. And as I'm standing there, I noticed my cheeks started to heat up. Like they started getting really warm and tingly. And then my lips started to warm up and my whole face then heated up. And it heated up so much so that like I could feel sweat coming out of my pores. And then my chin started wobbling like, if a baby's about to start crying and their chin wobbles? My chin started wobbling like that. And this was like the first time I felt energy kind of thing in the church. And I could feel an energy not taking over, but kind of activating. It's like the awareness of the energy started to become so prominent that it could express itself, right? So my chin started wobbling, and then all of a sudden it's just started, and I just started. And I was like thinking to myself, okay, hold on a second, am I doing this right now? What's happening? What's going on? How is my face tingling? How is it heated up? And how are these words coming out? And I was like, this is crazy, but this is amazing. Like it feels so right to be allowing this expression, right? And what I started to do was I was thinking, okay, right, am I doing this? Okay, what am I going to say next? Do I know what I'm about to say before I say it? Am I actually doing this? And I tried to be aware of the words that would come next, and I couldn't do it because I wasn't actually making these sounds consciously with my thinking part of my brain that makes words, which makes complete sense why I have no idea what comes out next, right? But what I do know is I could feel the energy coming through the expression. Okay. So this was the first time I started doing my, you know, expression of self through vocal expression, right? Because we have a voice, we have a physical movement like dancing or stretching, yoga, tai chi. I believe that these activities, these processes was all developed through a form of someone connecting with themselves deeply enough to allow the energy to guide their body, and then they shared it with others. And that's why they can be so impactful and influential in our own journey of self-discovery and self-exploration. And that's another point. I think we need to create a new genre of self-exploration because nothing quite matches the process of this journey in the genres that we have in certain things. So that's something that we should look into, guys, as a collective, I think, because self exploration is so important. I think it's actually one of the most important things that you could ever do in your life or have as a part of a process. I think it's what we should teach our children and what should be taught in the new societal schools that we will eventually build is to help the younger generations know how to explore themselves, to be themselves, to express themselves, and to live as themselves authentically and truthfully. But anyway, back to my story. So The intention was clear. It was openness, surrendered, willingness, curiosity, and non judgment from a perspective of allowing, right? So after this, I left and I was like, well, before I left, I was like, what if I can't do it again? And my friend was like, don't worry, you'll be able to do it. And I was like, are you sure? And she was like, yeah, you'll be able to do it. So I was like, okay, cool. I went and got in my car and I glossolalia'd, prayed in tongues, light language, whatever you want to call it, all the way home. It was not that far. It was like a half an hour drive. But that process of driving back, and I sat in the car and I was like, okay, can I do it? And I started doing it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was so excited. I was like, I can still do it. How is this? What is this? And obviously, I had the explanation from the people, but I was still curious because it was all new to me. And I was like, how, what, and what is it doing? Why am I doing this? And then I started researching and I started seeing all these negative perspectives. And I was like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't do it. Maybe I shouldn't do it. Maybe I shouldn't do it. And I was like, no, let me just go with it because it doesn't feel negative to me. Let me just experience what this really is. Like, what do I feel like it is? Not what's interpreted by other people. What do I feel like it is? What is it for me? And I carried on doing it. And over time, I started to, in fact, let's go to the other part of the story. Now I've gone to this church camp. In the church camp, now this is where I really experienced the energy self as intently as I did, right? So now I'm at this place, I can now pray in tongues. So I can now express my authenticity of my soul through vocal expression now. I can do my, we need to give this a name. It's expression of self through sound, right? That's what it is. You can have expression of self through movement, expression of self through sound, expression of self through thought. So this is expression of self through sound. You can also have expression of self through music, where you can create music with instruments that you make a whole melody and song through connecting to the energy of yourself and put it into the instrument and allow your energy to express what it wants with that instrument. And you can do this with painting and drawing and writing. And this is why people can do the channeling writing, because all you're really channeling is the frequencies in which you're tuning into from within yourself. And it may, in my opinion, people will say they're channeling from this specific person. But if you understand that everything in existence is energy, then that person's energy exists in the ether. So you could potentially connect to the wisdom of that experience and express from that perspective through yourself, if your intention aligns with the expression of that being or that, energy. So, anyways, back to the story. I went, and now I'm expressing myself vocally with complete openness and in a space where there are hundreds of people also doing it at the same time. So you could imagine the depth of one, vibration, two, intention, and three, the authenticity of expression of self through sound, right? It creates a very powerful atmosphere. And then you have someone sharing verses from the Bible, like scriptures from the Bible, that has deep, universal wisdom and truth that you can take the parts out of it that resonate with you and implement those perspectives in the way that you walk through life, right? So it's a very powerful place to put yourself. If you can step into those places as someone who doesn't walk in that faith and grow in wisdom and connection through different aspects, if you can go through different walks of life, different paths of life, and take all of the beauty from it and apply it to your experience and to yourself, then you're completely free to go into every box that exists, but live outside of all of them, which gives you the complete freedom to explore the world in a way that you can explore without being limited to one perspective, right? So now that I'm sitting here doing this for hours, the first day we get there, and it was a whole process of booking in and getting to our like apartment. Well, we stayed in a hostel actually. The guys all went in a hostel in the room, and we had bunk beds, like, and we all just stayed in there together, and that was really cool as well. It was a really good experience. And then we would get up the next morning and go. And in the next morning, we went, and it was a 2 night thing, if I remember correctly. And the first day we started, so after hours of doing this, I was then leaning on the chair in front of me with my forearms, right? And as I was leaning with my forearms on the chair and expressing myself through sound, uh, using my language, I'll just call it. That's a good way to say it. My friend says that to me, and that's probably one of the best ways to just my language. As I shared my language, I was leaning with my head down between my arms while they were resting on the chair in front of me. And you know when you like cut off the circulation to your body part, like when you sit with your legs crossed, for me, I get pins and needles in my legs, in my feet, in my legs. And it takes a couple minutes for the blood to kind of go back there and feel better. I think the blood circulation gets cut off. I think that's what it is. I'm not too sure. But I started feeling it in my arm, my left arm at first. And I was like, oh, maybe I should stop leaning on the chair. But I was so into my language that I kind of ignored it and just stayed with the attention and the intention placed on expressing my language, expressing myself. And then it started getting even more intense. And I was like, okay, it's a bit much now. Let me lift my arms off. And as I done so, my right arm started as well. And I was like, oh, I got pins and needles in both my arms. And then my stomach started, and I was like, whoa, hold on a second. And then it got even more intense, and I was like, okay, this isn't pins and needles. I've never felt pins and needles in my stomach, and I wasn't leaning on the chair with my stomach. What's happening? What's going on? And this sensation got so intense in my hands that it felt like my hands were vibrating. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen The Flash, but in The Flash, the TV series, the comic book, like the hero, he can move his body at such a speed that he can put himself through physical objects, right? And it felt like my hands were vibrating so intently that I could put my hand through that chair that I was leaning on. Obviously, I didn't, but that's what it felt like, right? And then all of a sudden, in my stomach, the sensation got so overwhelming that I ended up falling to the floor, curled up in a ball, and holding my arms crossed over my stomach and curled up in a ball. And this experience was so intense, but not in a negative way, but it, it made me cry. And the crying felt like a release. It felt like how did it feel? It was almost like a relief. Not a release, but a relief, like almost like finally, if that makes sense. But I had no idea what was going on, right? So after that experience, the sensations in my hands and my arms stayed present for the next 2 weeks. But the next 2 nights, I couldn't sleep because the energy sensation. Now, let me explain to you. I've now become aware of the energy within myself. Right? And because of the way that it happened, my awareness was so focused on the energy because it was such an intense experience that the next 2 nights I could not fall to sleep easily because I was so aware of the energy in my arms and my hands that I was distracted from being able to switch my awareness off to fall into a sleep. I was too busy feeling it. It took 2 weeks for it to gradually, slowly fade until it was completely gone. And then after that point, I could consciously, actively activate it on and off when I pleased, at like on demand, right? And it was like I could bring my awareness to the sensations, the energy in my arms and my hands. In fact, it was just my hands at first, consciously on demand. And I was like, this is interesting. What's happening to me? So I've asked one or two people from the place that I was at after a couple of weeks, and they didn't really know what I was talking about. So I went to the pastor of the church, and the pastor of the church shared with me something that did not resonate with what I was experiencing and did not align with an outcome to direct me into what I was experiencing. So I decided to take a step back from the place and just really explore it myself. So I started Googling, looking online, and once again come across a few things. Some was like Reiki, and like when you put energy in hands, normally it's just Reiki that comes up, and there's all different perspectives and ways that people kind of talk about this. I've heard of white light healing and all different things, right? And there's all different ones where you see people shaking and moving and all of this stuff, and that is potentially a part of the process. It's nothing crazy, it's just a process that we've forgotten as humanity, I believe personally. Um, but and it's a process of release, it's a process of realignment. So the nervous system makes the body move in interesting ways when it has energy imbalances, when it has frequencies that do not align with its natural resonance. You can cry, you can laugh, you can be sick, you can shake, you can dance, you can stretch, you can do some movement, right? And these are all ways of processing what's stored in the body, the energy that's stored in the body that holds frequencies that don't align with your truth, right? So this is what I've had to go through to learn to understand now. But when I asked about it, there was not really any information, right? And this is what I've been doing. I've been going through life trying to understand what I've experienced. And I've always been someone who kind of was curious about how things work. When I was a child, I used to get my toys and open them up and, see how they work. I was just curious, how does this work? And very quickly, I realized that if you don't pay attention to how you took it apart, you can't put it back together for it to work properly. So I learned that early on in my childhood and started paying more attention to how to put it back together to make it work again, not just take it apart to see how it worked. Okay, so I've done this same process with the things I've experienced in real life experiences. My mind, my emotions, the sensations that I feel within my body, my physical body, everything that I have experienced, I have reverse engineered. And then instead of putting it back together in a way that, I unfolded it because there was no way. Like it was just a process that I figured out over time of how to unfold it. I then had to engineer it back into understanding, but with my own perspective and my own experiences because there was no like instructions for this. So what I share with you is my own personal understanding and interpretation of things that I've experienced in real life, right? And I'm not saying it's the truth or this is real. I'm saying this is my understanding and my perspective. And I share it, openly, willingly with people who are interested and willing to listen because it's changed my life in such a profound way. And it's made me connect so much more deeply to myself and experience the world from such a different place that it wouldn't be right of me to not be willing to share for people if they are curious. So the process of what I'm doing currently with the recordings of this is me expressing my truth and leaving it available for anyone that may or may not want to dive into it, or anyone that may want to dive into it, because anyone that doesn't won't. So that's fine. If you wish to receive with, the intention that I offer it with, which is just a pure offering for it to be received, then welcome. Back to my story anyway. So now I've experienced it. Now, the process in which I went through to really understand what was going on was many hours of laying down in my bed, expressing my language and feeling the energy within my body. And eventually I realized that one of the keys is the surrendering, the offering, the willingness to receive, right? Because that makes you more receptive, it makes you more open. Yeah. So when you're more receptive, what you're doing is you're making your consciousness, yeah, be more open to your energy self expressing through your physical self, because your consciousness has stepped back out of the way and allowed your energy to step forward. And in doing so, there's one more step, which is to step your mind back so that the body can also express, but be guided by the energy rather than the conscious mind. So hours of me laying in bed and expressing my language and feeling the energy. And slowly over time, what started to happen was I could feel a movement. It's like a slight pull, like a slight magnetic pull. If you put two magnets closer together, you feel a pull towards the other one, right? It's the same kind of thing. Or if you've ever done this, if you haven't, you could try it. Put your hands, palms facing each other together. Put them between your knees when you're sitting with your legs at a 90-degree angle. And as you have your hands between your knees, push your hands outwards towards your knees and push your knees inwards towards your hands. So you build pressure on where you're trying to move your arms. Don't allow them to go out. Stop them from moving out with your knees. And do this for like 20 seconds, right? And after 20 seconds, lift your hands up and you'll automatically feel your hands wanting to pull outwards. I don't know if 20 seconds is long enough. If it's not, try for 30 seconds. You'll automatically feel your hands feeling like they want to go further away from each other. That sensation is the kind of sensation that you feel when the energy is guiding you, although it's more subtle than that sensation, depending on how long you held that, knees against the hands. So, anyways, let's go back to the story. I've moved my hand over my body and I've felt my energy in my body. There has been times where my body just started shaking and trembling, times where I just started crying. And there was like times where the expression of language sounds like chanting, it sounds like singing, it sounds like different languages. It sounds very intentional. It sounds like there's a rhythm, you know. So each one of these different processes that you go through connecting with yourself helps you develop the awareness of that aspect of yourself. And the more aspects of yourself you become aware of, the more completely you experience being this human. So, this is parts of the process that I've gone through to come to the understandings and the experiences and the expressions that I now have that I share with you. Now, I would love to be able to assist other people in learning to connect to the part of themselves that allows the expression of language, the glossolalia activation, but it's not necessarily an activation, but it's more like a remembrance because everybody can do this. They just have to be open enough to begin doing this because everybody has energy and every energy wants to express itself in the same ways, but in its own unique expression. So everybody can do the expression of language, but each individual person's expression will sound different. It will go in a different rhythm. It will go in a different tone. It will go in a different language type thing. I would love to be able to do this with people where they can connect to the aspect of themselves and the aspect of themselves where they can feel the energy in their body and keep working with it. And this is why the meditation of being aware and scanning your body is so powerful because it helps you be able to become more aware of the subtle sensations within yourself. It's like a stepping stone to the deeper aspect of self, right? So, anyway, what I would like to do, seeing as I'm here and I can't sleep and it doesn't feel like I'm supposed to be doing a process for myself right now, what I feel drawn to do, what my intention is suggesting to me, rather than me making the intention, is that I want you to open yourself up to the possibility of activating your own expression of language, right? So I would like you to close your eyes and just hear what I'm saying. Remember the intention that I had when my process unfolded. It was surrendered, it was open, it was as receptive and vulnerable as I could be, with a beautiful little twist of curiosity, even though I didn't believe. So you don't have to believe, you just have to be open. And you have to be willing. And I found that some of the best ways that helps that process to be more accessible, that state of being to be more accessible, is to relax yourself. Okay? So I'd like you to sit back, close your eyes, start taking deep breaths, right? In through your nose, completely fill your lungs, and out through your mouth. And do this at a pace where you are breathing without pressure, in and out. Take as deep as a breath as you can without feeling like you're forcing it, and let the air come out without pushing it. And while you're doing this, I'm going to share a perspective with you on one of the things that I've learned that will help, in general, relax a person, right? In fact, I'll share a few things because these are very helpful tips and techniques for individuals, right? Firstly, continue breathing, deep breaths. I found out and I've learned that humming is a very powerful method to help one relax. And there's a reason for this scientifically. When you hum, you vibrate the nerve that attaches to different aspects of yourself: your mind, your heart, your lungs, your digestive system. This nerve is also connected to your nervous system, right? Or it's part of your nervous system. I'm not entirely sure on that specific detail, but when you hum, you vibrate that nerve that stimulates a relaxing feeling because it stimulates the nerve that basically sends messages to these parts of your body, and it helps you to relax your nervous system. When your nervous system relaxes, you become more open, more like receptive, more surrendered, right? Because you feel safer, you feel more comfortable. It's very important to understand that comfort and safety is not just something to know, but it's something to feel, okay? When you hold space for yourself or others, they need to feel safe and feel comfortable. And you have to know how to offer that space. And if you can't offer that space, then that's someone you can't necessarily hold space for because they can't express their truths in the space that you hold. I've experienced this firsthand with my previous relationship. I could never hold space in the right way for that person, and I couldn't learn how to do it either. So there's always somewhere we can better ourselves, right? Anyways, now you should be feeling a bit more relaxed as you've been breathing and taking the breaths. So what I want you to do now is that you understand about the humming. Take the deep breath in through the nose. As you breathe out, keep your mouth closed but hum. Until you run out of the breath, and then in through the nose again. And in again. And just continue to do this. And as you continue to do this, I want to share a few other things with you. Just two other things. Just for useful information and tips, maybe it could be useful for you in some aspect of your experiences. Did you know that LED lights, the light bulbs that we light up our house with, flashes at such a speed that we can't physically see and comprehend that flash? But it's so much stimulation for the eyes, for the mind to process, that it brings us really out of alignment with ourselves. But a candlelight, a flame light, is the perfect type of light to have, to see, to not be negatively affected, because it's not so overwhelming. In fact, it has a relaxing sensation on the body. It also helps calm the nervous system, as well as the crackling from a fire pit and the wood burning, as well as the sound of water flowing, and just the visual of water also creates this same relaxing sensation for the nervous system. Okay, those little tips for you. And now, what I'm going to do while you continue to breathe and relax into it, I want you to place your awareness on an intention of expression through sound, through voice. So place your awareness on speaking. Make an intention to make a sound with your voice, with your mouth, but don't make any noise. You can now slow your breathing from the humming and just be present and fall into a natural breathing process, natural breathing method if you haven't already. And I'm going to send the intention of assisting with connection to the expression of self through sound for you. Be open, receptive, and place your intention on speaking without speaking. And trust the process and see what sensations come up. And listen to the sound of my expression and just be as still as you can. So, very what? So, Mati ma ade bakin do ship in masa. The intention is that anybody here listening to this will be able to connect to this aspect of themselves for themselves, to unlock themselves for themselves, to express themselves for themselves. Tika barati ma shipepe imya kwasata ma pipene mahata. Kima maratu huma kababariti mi inshipi kama mamo kuma bari bitahalaba. Kama mino nyumyama kama mito humana tepele barati masa. Imukumba bita shipshite no kama mabahali rimi sebikimo. Amma matehe makambia puya sa seperti imya pa kama makando hina makamba. Ima ishimshite uyamukuma bahindia kamariti. Kimarata ko mama maya babishipe ando ay kamate hemya myo korotoma mahamala bariti masabada ko mama shipete mi kamarto ke ma shi medata ko mami karate me amma pete ma shipu ko marati kina de bolo marati kamasa kamamat uimir delerate amma shipito umi kababarati lerata ma mokuma ba aship terti mele bertua kengiarto umakate divormo imalada ta inship to ikur padahala berarti mento kumama kambia bawoshinima ya kumama shupu berarti kimia pesumarti ini yobdo ma papa berarti kumama berarti hanama. Sapapin te me shite mia kuma pete da dora mete veradavlema. Amma te kumia berarti kitche shipete duele te kumia pa mete umana duhoma. Kama bedi helle berarti mishipetari no kumbadiga. Amma te no sapasatu ami kinda berarti tamate pa. Mumi dada miando ngiama sabatomo. Yemiada masapapu yamatoto kuma bishimata yamata libertime. Kimashi bishimata ingyopi yamanyo ite samasape daba. Amadi lerdi meaki nasapa midada. Kuma pita vashimete india kuma patele pridina masapikani kuma. Midaham shipapi yatwa shipikem yatwa dimarti mele pertuba. Kama maina hasatwa. Kamia paridima kanta paparimo. Yamakari tu masabeke marati hele briana. Kumarti te wasapete timiakati wabra. Umati pakan dirito humashipete peki miarte leprete makama. Ukente tamashipe mihaiku esa papari dema akandore to humaka. Mabapari da hamashipe sabaki mia beso. Kira tatala merito aim kia pasapasani bakumaya to mata. Inala de kumashipiki mia pakandore de bakuma malere de makanta imo. Ai nana tatata mia kumasapete de wasapai namakama. Makama ente mahabarata mia consapapi dama chinchara kamara. Kimeta pasa mia kumripide me kimia pa mia to makantidi tapama. Imakama shipu umakatu meke mia pepe sapatanya kumapa makanda. So I have started to, in the process of doing the language, my hands have started to move and I can feel a process of energetical unfolding happening within my head and slowly going down from the top of my head through my face, down currently at my mouth, on my chin, down to my throat. As my hands go above that area, I can feel the sensations moving through my body, down to my heart space, and now down to my stomach. And this is another reason why I like to do these recordings, is because it gives me a reason to be intentional with my time for myself. And I want you to use this time the same way for yourself. I don't want you to be here just to listen to me. I want you to be here to explore yourself as I explore myself. And if my exploration of self gives you some kind of an incentive or purpose or reason to stay connected, if you find it difficult with the discipline of doing so, then that is also an intention that I set for these expressions, because I personally find it hard myself as well at times to sit with myself. There's so many distractions that it becomes easy to be distracted from myself. I'm now feeling very strong energetical sensations in my head, and now on the sides of my head. Feels like the energy inside of my head is expanding outwardly. Okay. Something that come for me to share just now is that anyone that is here listening, if my talking is disrupting your concentration on yourself, on your connection, it's a very good opportunity to be more consciously aware of yourself, to not be distracted from the process of unfolding for you by any external noise or experiences. It's like when people go to a plant medicine ceremony, the intention is to take every situation, every moment as an opportunity for self development. So if someone's making a lot of noise that distracts you, be aware of it, get distracted, and then go back into yourself without having any judgment or negative thought process of why that person's making so much noise or anything like that. Just go back into yourself. It's just an opportunity to go back to you, to connect more deeply to you, consistently and consciously. So, right now, the sensations of energy in my hands are very intense. My head is also very intense. It's like there's waves going through my skull. There's tingling in my fingers. And it almost feels like someone has rubbed, like, you know, the mud baths when you put it on your skin and then it goes hard. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced it. I mean, I know people have, but I don't know if everyone's experienced this. But this is the sensation I have on the back of my hands, on the where the knuckles are, and above the knuckles. It feels like there was mud from a mud bath rubbed on it, and the mud is getting hard. And what happens is the skin starts to feel like it's stretching when you move it. But I'm not moving, but that's what it feels like. That's what the sensation is, along with the tingling in my fingers, with the waves going on in my head. And I also have tingling in my legs and my feet. So as I lay here and feel these things, observe your own body and see, can you feel anything? Is there anything happening inside of you? It becomes easier to be aware of it when you're able to relax into yourself, ease your nervous system, and observe your internal sensations. So, if you really went with this journey and you went deep enough inwards, there's a possibility that you're experiencing some sensations for yourself now, too. Those sensations, receive them as a gift, because they do so much more for you than anyone can really explain. Because it's something that you have to experience rather than understand with explanation. This is why this journey is so beautiful, because you can explain the depths of your experience, the depths of your soul, the depths of yourself. But you can only really comprehend it when you've explored those aspects for yourself, of yourself. What happens is the people you connect with that can explore that depth of themselves can also understand that depth of you, and the same as you understanding the depth of them. It makes your connections, your relationships more deep, more intentional, more meaningful. And it's not just your relationships that this impacts in that way. It makes your life more meaningful because you learn to give yourself moments that mean more to you, because you can listen to what feels right for you to do with yourself, with your time, with your intention. These sensations that you feel in your body becomes a guide to the way you walk through life. And when you walk through life in a way that this energy that you can feel feels in harmony, feels in balance, right? The more you create meaningful moments, because we give life meaning. And how do you give something meaning? Well, to give something meaning, you must do things that have meaning for you. And this is also another universal truth, because what has meaning to me may not have meaning to you, and what has meaning to you may have no meaning to me. But the universal truth is, whatever's meaningful to us individually gives our individual lives more meaning. So find what brings meaning for you and live a more meaningful life, because that makes it feel more whole, more full. You know, so many people say that the year has passed by the blink of an eye, at the click of a finger. But when you really experience the moments of that year, it doesn't feel like it flew by, because you experienced more. There was more meaning. There was less floating through time and more living through time. With all of this said, there is some interesting perspectives, in my personal opinion, some interesting experiences, and some interesting moments to have shared with you in this recording. I guess this recording is now episode 2. I just want to share something with you to really help you understand where I'm at right now in my current perspective, the way that I'm seeing the world. And there is a very big aspect of me that has been very suppressed for a long time with lack of self belief, lack of direction, because I didn't know how to listen to the aspect of myself that gave me direction. I was so disconnected from myself that I didn't believe in myself. I didn't understand how to navigate myself, and I didn't know what I liked for myself. And sharing these recordings is the most vulnerable I've ever been in my life, in the sense of how much I'm expressing of my truth. And I know this won't resonate with everybody, and it doesn't have to. But there will be people that it will resonate with, and there will be people that will appreciate it. And those are the people that this intention of sharing is for. So I say this to say there is still small internal battles that arise from time to time with creating this content, because I'm still very new into it. And I know there's a lot of people, most people will understand the perspective of the vulnerability that we share leaves us open for judgment, and judgment can be a difficult thing to experience. But I've found the less judgment you have, the more loving you are to yourself. And eventually, the more loving you are to yourself gets expressed outwardly to the more loving you are with everybody else. So try not to dwell in judgment, become aware of it, and release it. In every moment, judgment arises. Don't judge yourself for judging yourself, because you just continue the loop of that. Become aware of the judgment and allow it to express itself to you. And know that that is just a thought process. That is okay. And consciously choose to no longer have those kind of thought processes. Now, I would like to leave you to sit with yourself for longer if you wish. You can still feel the sensations in your body when this recording is ended. Just lay with yourself or sit with yourself, whatever position you're in, and just stay with the sensations that you feel for as long as it feels aligned for you to do. Thank you for joining me, and goodbye.